Hello ghouls and gals, this is going to be very much unlike your regularly scheduled programming, but hopefully this should be a bit of fun. Basically, I know next to nothing about Age of Sigmar, and despite loving Warhammer Fantasy, I've seen that the factions have changed quite a lot whenever I go browsing through the mortal realms. So in an effort to tell my Idoneth from my Orruks, I'm going to be taking a look at each and every Age of Sigmar faction and giving them my fresh hot ghoul takes. I'm going to be ranking all of the Age of Sigmar factions based off their appearances and vibes alone, with the smallest summary possible from Games Workshop, before rating them in this slightly altered tier list from Frox the Kobold. This won't be scripted, but hopefully I've edited it well enough that you don't just see me staring at a blank screen for ages. Let's get started. So, here we are. Beginning this list, I thought we would start with, well, alphabetical order really, with the Beasts of Chaos. Now, this is a faction that is basically looking like they are just the Beastmen as far as I can tell. They are going to be a load of goats, a load of bulls, a load of anything else that has little hooves instead of normal feet, and yeah, I don't really see them changing much. I don't even think this is a faction in the modern era of Age of Sigmar, 4th edition as it were. So yeah, I'm going to put these guys around solid like D tier. I think. You know, I like the vibe of Beastmen, I always like dudes with horns, but they're always just a bit too evil for my liking. You know, I'm thinking more like Narnia guys, maybe something like that, that could really give them a bit more oomph. Next up, I think we just go past the Beasts of Beasts of Chaos. I don't really need to say anything else more about them. They're the Beastmen. If you know Beastmen from Total War Warhammer, if you know Beastmen from any sort of Warhammer, they're cannibals from the sounds of things. They're going to eat you. They're going to go around on massive rampaging expeditions. I don't think they've changed into Age of Sigmar, and I would say the same for our next faction, which is the Blades of Khorne. Khorne is always a pretty cool guy. I like the fact that he just wants to kill stuff, you know, he doesn't try manipulating people like pretty much every other Chaos God. He's just like, hey, you're pretty angry, I'm going to give you my powers. And the demons are always pretty classic demons, like ultra red, ultra covered in blood. As you can see there, the horns are out, and so we've got quite an easy, I think an easy B tier for Blades of Khorne. B for Blades, B for Blood, B for the Blood God. Next, the Osirarch Bone Reapers, Osiriarch? I think it's Osirarch. Anyway, these guys are one of the few actually new factions, and I do really like their look. They are just super cool looking Bone Knights. It's like the Admech from Warhammer 40k just started making stuff with bones. I would say they're probably up there. They might not reach the ghoulish tier, which is our highest tier, which you might have already figured out is probably going to be safe for like one faction, but they are really, really cool. I'm not sure I quite find them S tier in their designs. They haven't made me want to go out and like get an army. And I think as well that they've been lacking in terms of new models from what I hear from people who I know who play Age of Sigmar. So I'm going to sit them also, I'm going to put them in the A tier. I might get less generous as time goes on and these spots start filling up, but I think Games Workshop has done a pretty good job in making a lot of the newer miniatures especially look really, really cool. Cities of Sigmar is one where I love the vibe. I love the idea of there just being normal dudes, and especially after the end times, normal dudes plus elves, plus dwarves, plus dark elves, whoever basically just wants to make a life for themselves in this mortal realm environment. But what I don't like is the idea that these guys kind of are just ways for Games Workshop to recycle old fantasy models and make them into something else. So to me, they sit at like a C tier. C for cities. I think that I love the vibe, I love the idea. If it was just pure vibes, they would be S. But they are C because they don't really get a lot of new models, and when they do get new models, they're just kind of dudes. So, like dudes on horses, dudes with armor. They're made to look worse than the Stormcast because the Stormcast are the poster boys, in my opinion. Next, Daughters of Cain. Again, sort of similar with Cities of Sigmar. I think that there's not been enough newness for them, but I do love the vibe. I do love Morathi's model might carry them alone to a B, to be honest. I think that that model in itself is just absolutely incredibly insane. And if they got fresh sculpts, they would be one of my top picks for going into a Age of Sigmar army if I was ever to buy one because, well, hey, money's tight, but you know. Disciples of Tzeentch, it's just Tzeentch, it's just demons. I think I could say the same about Blades of Khorne, but I love Tzeentch. He's my favourite Chaos God for many reasons. I love the bird designs. I love the fact that it's completely unique to himself. He doesn't feel like he's just sort of robbed an idea from someone else. It's like Games Workshop made Tzeentch into some sort of weird creepy designed guy that is as fascinating as he is maddening. I love H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that. So I would put this up as a Tzeentch pretty comfortably in S tier for design. Even if they are lacking a lot of new stuff from Age of Sigmar, their Warhammer Fantasy goodwill and what they are as a faction just always carries them in my mind. Like, I would put Tzeentch as S for 40k, I would put it at S for Fantasy, I would put it at S for Age of Sigmar, and that's what I'm doing here. You eagle-eyed viewers watching this screen may be aware that there is the Flesh Eater Courts. And the Flesh Eater Courts I love because I can actually describe what they are, because I looked up, what are ghouls in Warhammer Age of Sigmar a bit beforehand, and I can comfortably say that they are kind of the coolest guys around. These guys basically are mad because they eat flesh, and they've convinced themselves into thinking that they are like old-timey knights, and so they think they are, the King Arthur's knights. They're wearing this glittering, gleaming armor. They go out and they save the ladies and all those things, when actually they're just the most disgusting little cryptids you've ever seen in your life. And so, to me, they have to go in ghoulish tier because of that. And hey, I think that's pretty fair to say. Fyreslayers. The Fyreslayers, to me, I really like what Age of Sigmar has done with Dwarves, which has kind of split them into what they were in Warhammer Fantasy, but go a bit beyond that. But Fyreslayers, to me, because they're all just kind of dudes with big beards and big armor, really, I was going to put them in D tier, but the big worms save them, and they go in C instead. Gloomspite Gits, me love some gobbos. I love me some gobbos. They go in A pretty easily. Again, they've not changed that much. I can't really give you like a Flesh Eater Courts lore dump. They just are guys who are high on shrooms all the time and love killing and love being evil and have trolls as well as goblins. It is a bit sad that the goblins aren't really getting kicked about as much in the Orruk clans like they used to be, but hey, things have changed. Times have changed. Next up, Hedonites of Slaanesh. I do like Slaanesh designs. I like how weird they are. They're not S to me, but they're certainly not like low tier. I think that they are, I would put them pretty comfortably in like B and C tier. Yeah, C, I think they're never exciting to me. The Idoneth Deepkin, I think, are weird. I don't get them. They're like sea elves, I think. They have a lot of creatures at their disposal, but the Seraphon have a lot of creatures at their disposal. They are a bit different. I've got a little cheat sheet on my other monitor, which should hopefully give me some help with Games Workshop summarizing all of the Age of Sigmar factions. By invoking an etheric sea to envelop the battlefield, the Idoneth Deepkin send elite elven cavalry on vicious sea monsters into battle, from Fangmora eels and alopexes to giant shelled leviathans, while their soul-sick thralls pin the enemy in place. That's quite cool. They've got a mix of like, we're good guys because we're killing chaos, and they are part of the Order faction, like Grand Alliance, but they also have slaves. I don't know. I'll give them a B because I think they deserve that. Kharadron Overlords are also going into S. I know that might be incredibly surprising, but I do believe that they deserve this spot in S because they just look so cool. I think it's so nice to see dwarves that aren't just like, oh, we've got the big beards, we're going down into the mountains, we're going to mine stuff. Like, they could have easily just ported old dwarves into the new Age of Sigmar setting, but I love the fact that they're like mercenaries on their flying ships. They just seem to have such a unique vibe, and it's why I don't like the Fyreslayers nearly as much as the Kharadron, because the Kharadron really feel engaging as a way to push an old faction in. Legions of Nagash, I don't think are a faction anymore, but I guess they're the same as the Osirark Bone Reapers. I don't know. I'm going to put this in D. I'm going to put it in F. It's a safe spot in F because it's not that I hate Nagash. It's just that I think the Bone Reapers are like better, Ogre Maw tribes are also going to go in D. I don't find any of the Ogre no, actually, I've realized that a different faction is who I'm thinking of when I'm talking about these guys. These guys go in C because they're alright, They are alright. They've got some funny ideas. There's not really much diversity within the Ogres. Maggotkin get an A because of all their new models. They get an A because they always look really, really cool, and I would never play Nurgle because I just find it so disgusting to look at. But I really, really like the vibe of Nurgle and what he does. Nighthorn, I think, is either a D or a C. To me, I'm going to scroll down, I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet here. Nighthaunt, Acting more like a swirling cloud of vengeful spirits than a cohesive army, the Nighthaunt specialise in charging into and out of combat in a never-ending swirl of ghostly blades. So they're basically just like Hex Wraiths, the army. So I think that even though I like the look of Hex Wraiths as a supporting unit, I think having a whole faction of them is a bit much, and I think GW should really rein that in a bit. Orruks, man, these... So this is just going to be in regards to the Iron Jaws, but I love the Iron Jaws. I think they are incredibly well designed. I love that they're just thicker orcs. They're basically the same as what we had before, but there's nothing wrong with that because they're heavily armored. They're always needed. Like, orcs from Warhammer, no matter what you look at as a faction, are one of the best designed creatures, I think, in all of fantasy and sci-fi mediums. There's a reason why they're so beloved. I love the fact that they speak with Cockney accents. I love the fact that they're just brute idiots that are also really evil whenever you actually think about the things that they do to the settings that they're in. So yeah, easy A for me. Lumineth Realm Lords, I wish they were kind of... part of me thinks they're really cool looking because they look like they're straight out of an 80s fantasy movie, you know, they look like they're wearing costumes all the time. And then another part of me is like, well, couldn't they look like they're not wearing costumes from an 80s movie? So I think I put them in B. Seraphon, easy S. I've loved the Lizardmen since I first started collecting Warhammer, and they've only improved the model sculpts as time's gone on. The Seraphon as a faction as well, I think, were perfectly fitted from their Warhammer Old World exit to go into Age of Sigmar, because basically the Lizardmen just said peace and dipped. And so yeah, I don't really think there's anything wrong with putting them this high up. And I don't really have anything more to say apart from cool dinosaurs and cool lizards. Skaven, another easy S. I actually might put Skaven in the ghoulish tier, because Skaven are just so cool, and they have such a wide variety of units, and they have such a wide variety of lore, and to see them not in Age of Sigmar for a while was really, really hurtful, and seeing them come back into it almost gave me enough reason to like push forward and try and get into the setting more, but again, it's just so bare bones that I really struggle with it. Slaves to Darkness, normal Chaos dudes, I think they go right in the middle of the board in B. There's never a Slaves to Darkness model that I'm like, ooh, that's worth actually getting more than just one guy to sit on my desk. Like, the Slaves to Darkness model that came out this year as part of Warhammer Day celebrations was cool, and it was better than the Jump Pack Space Marine or whatever, but it wasn't anything, again, where I'd be like, I love Chaos. I think Chaos has always had a really cool vibe, but I think Chaos is at its coolest when you see different styles of guys that aren't just big armoured brutes, especially now that, as we go into the Stormcast, Order has its own big armoured brutes, and I have to say the Stormcast to me, I really don't know where to put them, because sometimes I think the Stormcast are so dull, and so Sigmarine pilled, and so annoyingly basic, and other times I look at like their face models, and I look at them really well painted by someone, or I see some of their character models, and I'm like, God, that is really cool, and so I really don't know where to put them. Because like I could put them from anywhere from A to D. I really could. It really depends on the day. And so I think I'll put them in a solid like B next to Slaves to Darkness. Sylvaneth is another faction that I wish just had more to it, because I think these like half Wraith, half Dryad guys are really cool, and those can carry the faction kind of on their own to a good point. Like, I love the idea of them, I love their lore, I love what they are, you know. I'll get my cheat sheet up and I'll give you a little read of the paragraph here. So the realm of life runs through Alariel's arboreal spirit legions, allowing them to whisk dangerous forest folk between strategically placed woods, while airborne insectoid cavalry and skilled archers harry your enemies. Yeah, we need more of the insectoid side of this Sylvaneth, I think, but yeah. They sit in C for me for now, based just on their look and their vibe. Hellsmiths of Hashut would go all the way right near the top for me. They're a really cool looking faction with a lot of variety. They are just Chaos Dwarfs, but the fact is that now we have new Chaos Dwarf models, so they're really cool. Again, their lore holds them back a bit, I think, but even so, they are still so amazing looking with all their new sculpts. Age of Sigmar just has really, really good models, and so I think the appearance carries them here, as well as the vibe. These guys actually go in F. The Sons of Behemat. What the hell is this, man? Just giants as a whole faction? What do you want me to say about that? How am I meant to get involved? You know, I'll get you my cheat sheet, and I bet you it'll just be like, these massive behemoths stomp through the battlefield, crushing hundreds in their past. Here we go. The Gargants of the Sons of Behemat tower over all other factions in the mortal realms, crushing lesser mortals underfoot and sweeping aside entire regiments with swings of their crude weapons. This immense power comes at a cost, however. It's rare to have more than a handful on the battlefield at once. Yeah, what can you do with that? You know, what can you actually do with that as a faction? It's cool to be able to go, I'm going to bring 5 models to the battlefield, and then I'll have a full army. But yeah. The next one is the Cruel Boys. Cruel Boys go in S. I love Cruel Boys. I think they are so cool looking. I love the fact that they've basically become kind of like how goblins were to orcs in Warhammer Fantasy, but without the idea of them being small little runts that they can be kicked about. It's like they are clever, they are nasty, they are mean, and they make orcs feel like villains again in a setting properly. Because Iron Jaws and orcs in 40k are always seen as too stupid to actually be like hated on, whereas I think making them smarter with the Cruel Boys is a really, really effective thing. Cruel Boys, I'm going to read from the cheat sheet. The brains of the Iron Jaws brawn, the Cruel Boys are a devious and cunning culture of Orruks who would much rather stab people in the back. They have a balanced roster of troops and monsters that can find any answer for any kind of prey that needs to kill, backed up by deadly tricks and swamp magic. So that's just cool. Finally, ghouls and gals, we have the Soulblight Gravelords, and I tell you, the Soulblight Gravelords also hitting the ghoulish spot. Oh my god, 2 ghoulish factions? Yeah, I don't know, I just love them. I think they're really, really cool. Like the idea of vampires sort of having their own faction, powerful vampiric lords leading masses of undead. Soulblight vampires are the pillars of this diverse faction and are often found both physically and magically. With undead knights and horrifying beasts, add some punch to their mobs of skeletons and zombies. So yeah, I mean, I'm not even that big of a Vampire Counts fan compared to Warhammer Fantasy, but I think with these new sculpts, these new models, as I always say, the look of the faction really feels like it's solidified beyond even a point of the Osirog Bone Reapers, and they are just a faction that I want to see more of. They make the world feel, or the realms, I guess you'd call them, feel more real and lived in. But yeah, that's my tier list. This something that I'm sure will hopefully drive a lot of conversation. I'm sorry that this video is going to be massively unscripted and massively strange. It might also run way longer than some of my other videos in the past. But if you've stuck around till the end, thank you, thank you, thank you. I just really wanted to get something out before we get to the end of the year. I know this year has been massively up and down in terms of my uploading schedule and in terms of this channel as a whole. But if you stuck around and if you've been watching and you are watching, thank you so much. I am actually interested and looking forward to more Age of Sigmar content. If this does well, I'd love to do more tier lists, stuff like this, some more casual stuff, some more conversational stuff, because I've found as I've been talking through this that I can just rant without a script, and while my voice might not sound as practiced and I might stutter over some words, I think that we've had a good time. Let me know if you agree, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, peace, ghouls and gals.